Hello there, and welcome to the second lesson in the book, The Sales Book for People Who Hate Sales. This is about the Platinum Rule. And what the Platinum Rule is, well, we'll talk about what the Platinum Rule is. I will share a story though. The moment I learned what the Platinum Rule was and how it was going to change me is when I started to step out of myself and realize that the world is a much bigger place. And I didn't even have the Platinum Rule. It was just something that occurred to me. And it happened at a certain age. And I actually was asking my kids recently, like, when did you realize the world was bigger than you were? When did you realize you were not the center of the universe? And it's interesting. My son said that he realized that at a pretty young age, and it was surprising to me. And my daughter said, "What do you mean? I'm still the center of the universe." And in a way, she's kind of right, because we're all the center of our own universes. But what the Platinum Rule does is it really kind of allows us to comprehend what's outside of us and realize what other people might be looking for in their relationships with us. So the Platinum Rule, again, I'm sorry, I'm going to do a shameless promotion here, but if you're interested in what I'm talking about today, no requirement to buy the book, but the book has this along with a bazillion other things in it to help you really achieve a sales process that is beneficial to you. So it's all about creating your own special sales process that will help you achieve what you really want to do with your customers. But I'm not going to belabor that fact. Let's get right into the content. So, um, the Platinum Rule is kind of a play off of the Golden Rule, and we've all heard the Golden Rule, and I'm sure you know what the Golden Rule is, but we're gonna play this game anyway. So, what is the Golden Rule? Well, the Golden Rule is to treat others the way we want to be treated. Now, this is a rule that's been around forever. You've probably experienced this rule. You've probably said it to somebody, like, treat others the way you want to be treated. And I got a question for you. Is it a good rule or is it a bad rule? Now, I don't really like to put like good or bad statements behind anything, but in this case, I think a lot of times, and I think a lot of people would agree, this is a good rule. Hey, if we treat others the way we want to be treated, then that means we're not doing mean things to other people. So the golden rule is great if you're dealing with children, right? Like we've all had kids, we say, hey, don't do that. That's mean. How would you like to have that done to you? And it gives them an understanding of like, oh, that was a mean thing that I did and I should probably stop. What the thing about the golden rule is it's only good with children because as you get older, we establish how we want to be treated, and then we start treating others that way, and it may not be congruent with how they want to be treated. So I like to say that my favorite thing is we need kids to understand the concept of not harming others so they don't bludgeon each other to death to get the Lego pieces they need. And that's 100% true. Like you tell that to a kid so that they can understand and they can comprehend. But as adults, we don't necessarily need that. So what I'd like to do, and I'd like to do this, is I'd like to cross out the golden rule. I think it's a dated idea. It's something that we just need to get out of our heads, and it's not going to be easy because these things have been stuck in our heads for a very long time. The golden rule needs to go away. I don't want to keep talking about that, but the idea of treating others the way you want to be treated is a bad idea. So instead, what we're going to do is there was a Dr. Tony Alessandra actually wrote a book called The Platinum Rule. And in The Platinum Rule, he kind of lays out this whole idea, this whole concept of something completely different, which is treat others the way they want to be treated. Now, this is an important concept and it's a really big paradigm shift because instead of, hey, I don't want to hit that person because I wouldn't want to be hit, it's now, hey, I don't want to hit that person because they wouldn't want to be hit. And what else do they not like? What else do they like? It's not about what I think is funny, it's about what they think is funny. this is an important thing. This is actually what got me to stop doing stand-up comedy, believe it or not. The things I found funny were not the things that the crowd found funny. And I realized I didn't want to change what I was doing. I didn't need them to change either. So what this does is it gives us a new purpose. It becomes less about blindly guessing what somebody wants, and it starts making us observers of other people and observers of what they're saying. They're telling us through verbal and nonverbal communication what they want, what they enjoy. It also does another thing. It makes every conversation more engaging because you can't just sit back and just have someone talk at you. You actually have to be engaged and understand, oh, they mentioned that they don't like Cheech and Chong. So maybe not making Cheech and Chong references is the right way to go. So we're going to test this real quick, and this is something you can play along with. And this is something this is the best part about this book, by the way. Has anybody ever spoken to you in a way that did not feel right, and then when you were told, I was just kidding, or you're too sensitive? And I'm guessing that it has happened to you. And it happens to me, actually, believe it or not, quite a bit. I'm trying to think of like a specific time. And when I think about this, and when I think about like someone who's joking with me, and then I was just kidding, it was actually somebody, it was a more recent like business thing. It was like, hey, you're doing just fine, aren't you? Now that seems kind of innocuous and kind of silly and trite, but assuming that I'm doing just fine is basically telling me that I can't explain to them if I'm maybe not doing okay. By them telling me, hey, you're doing just fine, it basically takes away the ability for me to say, well, I'm actually not, because it's contrary to what they're saying. And it tells me that they're just not interested in listening to me. They're just interested in moving on with the conversation, getting on to whatever they're talking about. So how did it make me feel? Well, when you're doing just fine, it honestly made me feel like they were not interested in listening. And when you feel not listened to, do you tend to want to talk? The answer is no. So this is an example of someone who treated me in an assumptive way. They assumed I was doing okay. They didn't actually want to have the discussion. And so all of a sudden, I'm in a situation and I'm in a conversation that basically tells me this person's not interested in actually hearing about who I am or what I'm actually going through right now. So going through and using the platinum rule in this case, how would that question change? Now, the way I look at it is if I was using the platinum rule, hey, you're doing just fine, suddenly turns into, tell me about what's going on in your life. Is everything going okay? And if not, tell me about that too. That suddenly is a platinum rule thing because that's what people actually want. They don't want to be told, hey, this is how you're feeling. They want to have the ability to open up and kind of talk and explain. And maybe they tell you some things within that moment that you didn't realize about that person. Oops. So what I want to really do is solidify that in our minds. And what is the platinum rule? It's to treat others the way they want to be treated. Now here's the exercise going forward for the rest of the day is as you're talking to somebody, when you ask them a question, if you are asking them questions, and you should, but if you're asking them a question, are you asking that question for your benefit or for their benefit? The question should always be for their benefit. And we'll talk more about that later on. And thank you so much for joining me for this lesson, and have a good rest of your day.